Okay, so now I'm going to do the trigger plate. If you recall on the very first video, this thing was straight and I ended up bending it. I might have to bend it some more to get it to fit inside this little curved area here, but I'll do that. I want to get this thing inletted at least so it fits it within the mortise before I determine how much I need to bend it some more. So I'm just going to go ahead and put some inletting black on here and get it in the hole and get this thing inletted. Then we'll do the trigger next. Back on the trigger plate there, and I went ahead and put it in and tapped it a couple times, and you can see all of the items or all of the areas where there's black have to be removed to get this trigger plate inletted. So I'll go ahead and continue on and see how it looks when I'm done. Okay, so we're back. We got the trigger plate inletted, and now it's time to cut the slot for the trigger so that it engages the sear on the lock. Okay, so I've got the trigger plate inletted, and now what I'm doing is cutting the slot or inletting the slot for the trigger itself, and just basically taking a chisel here and just gouging it out little by little until I get down to where the slot will meet the sear, which comes in from this side. So I'm going to go ahead and continue on with this and show you how it looks after I get done. Okay, so we're back. I've got the slot chiseled out, and as you can see, hopefully you can see, the trigger is now visible through the sear hole there. Now, in order to inlet the slot all the way to the size of this trigger, I'd have to come all the way clear up to here. And I don't think I need that much. So I drew a line on this trigger, and I'm going to cut that off so that it'll allow me to slide this thing further into this existing groove here and activate that sear. So I'm going to cut this off and then see how it works. Okay, so I cut the top of the trigger. I'm probably going to round it off and shape it a little bit better. But as I insert it into the trigger slot here, you can see that it goes a lot further in, and now I'm sure that I'll be able to hit that sear once I insert it through the hole there. I'm probably going to have to take off some material off the back end of this to allow it to tilt up, because there's some wood on the inside that's preventing that right now. So I'll probably need to shape this more into an angled profile, and it'll be able to work a lot better. So I'm going to go ahead and put the lock back inside here and see how this thing activates. Oh, you know what? I got to pin this thing first. So I'll pin this right now and make sure that it works right. Hold on. Okay, you can see here that I drew a line where that trigger enters the sear, and within that line I'm going to be drilling a hole that will engage the trigger plate here, and the trigger lever, I should say, and allow the trigger to rotate back and forth to trip that sear. This hole will go from inside the mortise of the lock plate and all the way through to the other side. And the lock plate itself will sit on top of this and hold that pin, at least on this side, in place. I'm not exactly sure where the pin's going to come out on the other side, but since it doesn't have to line up with another hole like these lock bolts did, they had to line up with the hole in the back. This one's not so critical, and it's a lot easier. Just drill the hole and it comes out wherever it comes out. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now and show you how it looks after I'm done. Okay, so I have the trigger pin. This is just a nail. And you can see that it pivots nicely. But I do have to cut down the back profile of the trigger bar here. Oh, nail fell out. But I do have to drill down or shape this thing at an angle because it still hits the top of the mortise within the slot here. Anyway, you can see I've got two holes. Well, that first hole right there missed the top of this trigger. So I decided to drill another hole, and you could see where it hit here. Another thing is, as with every drill that I own that I need for this gun, they're all too short because the gun is too wide. So I ended up using a larger drill bit because the larger drill bit was long enough to make it all the way through the stock. So I'm going to have to find a pin that'll fit that 5/32 hole. But the trigger is in there, and with that nail, it operates properly. Now what I'm going to do is put the lock in here and try to get this sear shaped, or the trigger bar here shaped to where it'll actually engage the sear properly and trip that trigger, or trip the lock. Anyway, so I'll get the camera back on when I get that done and show you how it works. Okay, so I found some pin stock that I could use for that trigger pin, and what I'm going to do now, since the trigger bar is in there, what I've done, I've painted the end of this sear with some inletting black, and I'm just going to go ahead and insert it into the mortise, just to give a general idea of where this thing is hitting. You can see here that there's some inletting black right on the top edge there. So I won't have to take off very much, at least at this point. What I'm going to do is trim down that trigger bar down to below that mark. And that way I'll be able to insert the lock all the way into its mortise and hopefully be able to activate that sear and fire the lock. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, take the trigger out and work that little edge down there. Try it again and see how it works. Okay, so I have the trigger and the lock installed now, and there's really no play at all in this in the trigger. I might take off just a little bit more just so that's not so tight, but here's half cock. Does not fire, which is right. And there's full cock. Nice trigger pull on there too. I still have to drill the tang bolt in here, but as you can see, it works. Anyway, so that's it for the trigger. This episode of the Wall Gun Build Along has come to a close. Castrick Bowcraft, thanks for watching.